Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we're going to be talking about the Kirill Kaprizov signing and even some of the Rasmus Dahlin deal and how this changes everything for the rest of the NHL RFAs in Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, and Brady Tkachuk. Now, two of the big RFAs this offseason are linked to the same team, the Vancouver Canucks, with Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. We haven't really heard too much on either of these guys signing, and there is a lot of confusion and a lot of worry that they might bleed into this next season and actually miss some games for the Vancouver Canucks. But with two deals just being signed, that could be some pretty good contract comparables. Will the Vancouver Canucks be able to get a deal done? And what does this mean for the Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes contracts going into the future? Watch till the end for all the news and all the latest trade rumors, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new. 60% of the people that are watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey, and if you like hockey news, this channel is the place to be. Now, this offseason was kind of looking like 2019, where there was a ton of RFAs that were left unsigned with no news to report and no traction really on deals getting done. Until this last week, where the floodgates kind of opened. The first big RFA deal was Rumours signing his one-year deal with the Edmonton Oilers, but after that, we saw a ton of more deals getting signed. You saw players like Nolan Patrick signing with the Vegas Golden Knights. Then you had a big floodgate this past day with Kirill Kaprizov, Robert Thomas, and now Rasmus Dahlin signing RFA deals and sticking with their teams. Now there is just three big RFAs left. Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators and Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. And I think with these deals being signed, most notably Kirill Kaprizov and Rasmus Dahlin, I think we'll have a lot more traction on these deals because of these signings, just for the pure fact that they are actual comparable deals. Now, Rick Dhaliwal and Elliot Friedman have had a lot on this story over the past 24 hours, and one of the big things that Vancouver especially was waiting on was guys like Kirill Kaprizov, was players like Rasmus Dahlin, what they would eventually sign for, and if the Canucks could get around the same deal. Now that Kirill Kaprizov has signed his 5-year, $9 million deal, and Rasmus Dahlin his 3-year, $6 million deal, I think we can see the Canucks finally start to get some more traction and might be able to actually get these deals done now. Now, before the Kaprizov signing was actually announced, Elliot Friedman went on the Donnie and Dwally podcast that gave us some great info and great insight onto the Elias Pettersson situation specifically. Now, he said this: they have rarely talked term with Elias Pettersson, kind of all over the place with Quinn Hughes. Kaprizov is Pettersson's comparable, and they are trying to figure it out and find common ground. So a lot of info there, and again, one of the big things is that Kaprizov is the Elias Pettersson comparable in contract talks with the Vancouver Canucks. That is the big thing. And now that Kaprizov has signed his 5-year, $9 million deal, that leads a lot more into an Elias Pettersson spotlight. That leads a lot more attention onto this negotiation with the Vancouver Canucks. And honestly, I find it pretty interesting that Kaprizov is an actual real comparable to Pettersson, because even though in terms of some game they actually do have some similarities, I don't see Elias Pettersson getting a 5-year deal. If Elias Pettersson wanted to sign a 5-year deal, I think it probably would have happened already. I think that's what Vancouver would want to see happen, but I think Elias Pettersson wants to get a more shorter-term deal, and that's been confirmed by Rick Dhaliwal as well, that Elias Pettersson wants a more short-term bridge deal on this contract, and then would maybe sign a big one afterwards or go to a different team. That is the big confirmation right now. So I don't see it being a true one-to-one comparable, but now that Kaprizov is signed, I think it makes Elias Pettersson signing as well before the season starts a lot more likely. Now, what I find most interesting is the comparable Kirill Kaprizov in the cap hit. Obviously, we know that Vancouver and Elias Pettersson kind of want a more shorter-term deal to actually make this deal cap compliant. But when it comes to the cap hit, I think that's what's most interesting, especially with the Elias Pettersson situation, because with Kirill Kaprizov signing for $9 million, how much less valuable is Elias Pettersson to the Vancouver Canucks? I've seen people saying he could get as low as $6 million, and to me, that would be rather low for a guy that's been so good for the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, this past year was definitely not as great, but his first couple of seasons in the NHL were astounding, and this was a player that, in terms of the MVP talks for Vancouver in his first year and his second year, I think was right up there. I think the Vancouver Canucks should give as much as humanly possible to Elias Pettersson to stay, have him in training camp, and to get him for the start of the season. But comparing both of these players, I love Kirill Kaprizov and I love Elias Pettersson. But again, Elias Pettersson is a center. He's a guy that should be fully healthy for this next year. And on a shorter term deal, he might have a case to be upwards of $7 million, $8 million on a contract. And again, how much less does Elias Pettersson deserve than Kirill Kaprizov? I mean, just looking at the statistics of both of these guys, Kirill Kaprizov obviously has only played one season, and he is older, so that does factor in. But Kirill Kaprizov this last year got 51 points in 55 games, 27 goals, 24 assists. Meanwhile, when it comes to Elias Pettersson, I mean, in 2020, he got 66 points in 68 games as a much younger player. And then this last year, even though he wasn't that healthy and even wasn't really that great, he still got 21 points, 10 goals, 11 assists in 26 games. Still really good production, even when he was kind of off his game. So for me, when it comes to Vancouver, if it's going to be an even shorter deal, it almost seems like Elias Pettersson almost deserves almost as much as Kirill Kaprizov, and is younger as well to me. And obviously Vancouver can't afford to pay Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes $8 million each. I think Pettersson is worth that type of money, and it's not surprising why he would hold out this long, because I think he could be worthy of that type of deal. He's obviously not going to get it in Vancouver right now, and I think especially, and that's another reason why we won't see a 5 or 4 year deal. I think it's going to be a 3 or 2 year deal, especially that Pettersson will sign to hopefully maximize his value later on. Now, I still totally get why Kaprizov is going to get paid more, and he is going to get paid more. Let's be honest here. Obviously, Kaprizov, you have 2 UFA years that are a part of his 5-year contract, so you're paying a little bit more because of that to keep him that way. And also, Kaprizov is just the Wild's MVP by far. Meanwhile, for Elias Pettersson, it's not quite as big of a margin, though I do think Elias Pettersson leaving the Canucks would be detrimental for that franchise. But I still think this is a deal that is going to get done eventually. I think it will kind of bleed into training camp, and that's pretty much an inevitability at this point, but I don't think Elias Pettersson is going to miss a game for the Vancouver Canucks. Again, he's fully healthy. I think he'll be ready to go, and I think the Kaprizov contract will be a great starter point for the Vancouver Canucks and the Pettersson camp to really start to get some work done. We'll see what happens, but I do project the Pettersson contract to be around that 3-year, likely $7 million deal. I don't think he's going to get the absolute bag, but still $7 million for a guy as young as Pettersson, not too bad, I must say. But now that we have the Elias Pettersson situation kind of sorted out, the next big step for the Vancouver Canucks is Quinn Hughes. And he might be a little bit more of a confusing mess to actually clean up. Because when it comes to Quinn Hughes, the biggest comparable is obviously Rasmus Dahlin. And now that Dahlin has signed his contract, that is a huge first step to getting Quinn Hughes done. And that might just be right around the corner. But when it comes to Vancouver, the cap hit and the contract might not be too pretty. You can definitely stomach getting Pettersson at $7 million for 3 years. If he's healthy, he's definitely worth that. But with Quinn Hughes, his value is a lot harder to actually pinpoint because he had the great first season. I think he should have won the Calder Trophy that year. I think he was the best defenseman that year. Cale Makar just slightly behind. And then this last year, absolutely cratered. He was awful. He was bad. He was just not good enough. And I thought in his first season defensively, he was okay, and that led to some great offensive results. And you were able to stomach that just okay defensive play. But this last year, he wasn't able to protect the puck. His physicality was just way exposed in the NHL this last year, and teams started to finally catch up to him. It seemed like everything fell apart in his game. So how do you value that type of player that has had one great, amazing season and one terrible season that you just want to forget about? That to me is the hardest part in this contract negotiation, and especially compared to Rasmus Dahlin, it's kind of hard to compare because Dahlin has had, I think his rookie season was his best season, and in these past couple of years haven't really been that great defensively or physically. So maybe there is actually a little bit of a comparable there, but at the same time, I do think Quinn Hughes is a better player than Rasmus Dahlin right now, and they might actually get some pretty similar deals. I could see him kind of getting a Pettersson contract if he does go shorter term. Around that 2 to 3 year deal, I think you could see a $6.5, maybe $7 million contract, and I think it would be pretty similar to Pettersson and Rasmus Dahlin. If the Canucks do go for that short-term deal and Quinn Hughes signs it, I could see it being around that range, and honestly, I'd be perfectly comfortable with around a $7 or $6.5 million contract for both Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. Now, I did go back and read Elliotte Friedman's 32 thoughts that he recently released, I think it was yesterday, where he basically gave us a little bit of details on the Elias Pettersson situation for the most part, where he said this: in Vancouver, both team and Hughes Pettersson have been grinding hard on almost a daily basis. Sounds like there's a bit of a stalemate in both cases, and Pettersson joined his teammate in Michigan. It's It's believed the Canucks are currently thinking short-term in both cases, but Kaprizov's deal makes me wonder if the true solution is Mikko Rantanen's 6-year, $9.25 million contract that would buy the Canucks 2 years of free agency. There's been pushback to rumors the team might move a player to open room, especially since Tyler Mott is injured. So you get a little bit of detail there, and Elliot Friedman again wonders if we could see maybe a little more of a longer-term deal, especially with Elias Pettersson, and that maybe could be the case. I still think 3 to 4 years would be the sweet spot for him, but again, if he does want to have some UFA years bought out, and maybe he could end up having some more leverage once he is a UFA in 5 to 6 years, maybe that is the plan. But for me, if I was Elias Pettersson, I would still go for a more short-term deal, because obviously Vancouver, I don't think, is going to be able to give him the big bag right now. So for me, if you wait 3 years, they might be able to give that. But for me, when it comes to Pettersson, it's just a bad situation money-wise right now in Vancouver, and I can get the frustration on both Hughes and Elias Pettersson's side that a deal hasn't been done yet. And once again with Vancouver, I go back to the Tyler Myers contract as an absolute mistake. I know he was solid this last year. It didn't exactly matter, though, for the Vancouver Canucks. And now you're facing the repercussions of that deal. Now having to face cap troubles a lot more if you wouldn't have had him. I mean, again, he's making $6 million on the cap. And you could have had that extra money for Elias Pettersson, and especially for Quinn Hughes. I think it would have been so much more easier if you didn't sign Tyler Myers 2 seasons ago. And although he is a good player, again, at the time I knew it would cause some problems down the road, and so far it absolutely has. I mean, with the Ottawa Senators, they're just kind of being stingy in the Brady Tkachuk situation, and they're not giving him a more shorter term deal that Brady Tkachuk apparently wants. When it comes to Vancouver, though, they're absolutely screwed right now, and if they find a way to get it done, it would be an absolute miracle. I still hope Pettersson and Hughes are able to sign, but at this point, Jim Benning has put himself in this position to not succeed at all. But I do think Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes will eventually get done with the Vancouver Canucks. The one guy that I could see actually going into the season not with a contract is Brady Tkachuk, which I think would be crazy for the Sens to do. But Elliot Friedman gave us some new information on that situation, saying that they've been trying on a long-term deal, and maybe a short-term deal is the way to get it done. But Elliot Friedman says that Brady Tkachuk, one of the big things that he wants is signing bonuses that a lot of stars get throughout the NHL, and Ottawa doesn't do signing bonuses. They don't want to give out that type of deal, and Brady Tkachuk wants that type of money. So it seems like that's just a complete mismatch from both of these sides, and I think that could lead on to this contract negotiation going a lot farther. It seems like they're not even close whatsoever on a deal, and again, I see Hughes and Pettersson being a lot more likely to sign over the next week than Brady Tkachuk at this current moment. I hope all 3 of these guys sign before the season starts, but Brady Tkachuk could be another situation that we might see going into the season, just like William Nylander a few years ago. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already for more news content just like this. Make sure you comment down below. What do you guys think of the Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes negotiations? What do you think about Brady Tkachuk? What do you think about the Kirill Kaprizov and Rasmus Dahlin deals? Are they underpays, overpays? Let me know your thoughts. What do you think Pettersson and Hughes will end up getting? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure you share this video with your friends, get it out there, and click on this card for all of my predictions and picks videos right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.